The story begins with the protagonist climbing the stairs, breathing heavily, and wondering who would have thought that he would transform into a villainous mob from a game. He is familiar with this world because that's the game he always played. However, he is super confused because, as a villain, he should have a cheat skill somewhere to be feared, but instead, he looks like a pig. One day, in a timely rush of work, this guy went home early despite the buzz of his colleagues gossiping about his obsession with a stupid game. Arriving at his house, he dropped into his seat and put on the gear for Dungeon Explorer Chronicles, also known as DunX. It's a VR MMO with exceptional graphics and action-packed gameplay. A late bloomer in the gaming world, it has become incredibly popular, and he's completely addicted to it. DunX updates precisely at 6 p.m., which works perfectly for him since his work hours end at 5 p.m. Today is going to be huge for him. He's been selected as a beta tester for the next massive update. Without wasting a second, he logs in and immediately notices the crowd. Plenty of other players have gathered for the event. At first, he's overwhelmed with excitement, but this time, there's a hint of nervousness creeping in. He gives himself a quiet pep talk, reminding himself of the exclusive rewards beta testers might receive. Though he's wary of clashing with other testers, he's far from a low-level player. There's no way he's missing this event. The next day, the usual workplace chatter continues. However, the office gossip senses something different about him. He doesn't look as desperate to get home and play as he normally does, though he still leaves at the same time. Who knows what's really going on? Days later, he would clearly remember the event as pure hell. It started with the dragon's entrance, instantly wiping out 10% of the players during the prologue. Then, the entire venue began to self-destruct, forcing players to scramble for escape routes under a strict time limit. As if that wasn't enough, dozens of instant kill traps were scattered everywhere, making survival nearly impossible. In the end, only one player remained. He was the last man standing and the one who cleared the game. The next day, as soon as he logs in, he's startled by an update email. It mentions a peculiar perk, something about being transported. He brushes it off as a joke or some strange in-game setting. As a beta tester, he's given a choice: auto pick or custom character. It's a nerve-wracking decision. In the end, he chooses auto pick to save time. The screen flashes a single prompt: "Let's start!" In the next instant, he's transported into the game, right in the middle of the first-year welcome ceremony at the Adventurers Academy. Shaken to his core, he recognizes all the familiar faces from DunX. But where the hell has he landed? Trying to stay calm, he pieces together the clues and decides to follow the storyline for now, while searching for a way to log out and figure out how he ended up here. After the entrance ceremony, he learned that he's been assigned to Class E, the lowest-ranked class, alongside several side characters. The odds are terrible, but since he isn't even sure if his real body still exists, he decides he might as well experience this world to the fullest. As he heads upstairs, a strange sensation leaves him short of breath. When he finally catches his reflection, horror washes over him. He isn't just any character. He's Narumi So-ta, the villain, who harassed the main cast and was eventually expelled. Known by the nickname Bu-tao, he's nothing more than a punching bag, constantly bullied and looked down on by everyone around him. The first person he clashes with is the elegant beauty, Hawase Kaoru, an outstanding student with exceptional academic and athletic achievements. Unfortunately, she treats Soda like trash, and for good reason. The original Soda had physically harassed her during the opening ceremony. To her, and to many others, he's nothing more than an obstacle to be kicked aside. He instantly regrets choosing auto-pick. Now that Kaoru already despises him, he decides not to make any reckless moves. This chubby body seems to have a natural talent for making enemies. Auto-pick really was the worst possible choice. A complete lose-lose situation. Armed with Soda's memories of being hated by everyone and stuck in a 100-kilogram frame, he still resolves to act differently and find a way out of this game. In class, he endures Kaoru's dagger-like stares. He's trapped in this absurd situation, thrown into a fantasy world, burdened with Soda's emotions and a fate where the heroines are destined to hate him. When he finds his seat, he learns he's ranked dead last in Class E. He has no idea how Soda even managed to get into such an elite academy, but he forces himself to gather what little confidence he can. Then, he spots Murai Hajime, a renowned alumnus of Adventurers High School, explaining the academy's rules and structure to the new students. So far, the storyline of Dun X remains intact. He reflects on how the adventurer profession holds the spotlight in this country. With the Academy's prestige and privileges, it feels like an entirely different world. Despite countless career paths, adventurer companies are always recruiting, since the entire system revolves around dungeon exploration. On top of that, corporations are desperate to harvest the energy generated from those dungeons. When Sota taps the wristwatch issued to him, a holographic terminal pops up. The menu displays his player status, along with a log out button. He freezes when he sees his stats. They're unbelievably low, swallowing the harsh truth that his build is beyond terrible. Sota immediately searches for the logout option, only to realize it's gone. At the same time, a student from Class D is already plotting to raid Class E. Meanwhile, this soft-faced so-called loser notices something else in his status window. The skill Gluttony. He once dreamed of entering this world, but never as Soda. He has no idea how to fight using a skill like Gluttony. Then it hits him. This very skill might be the reason his body is so overweight. If Gluttony is the cause, then maybe it can be overwritten. Determined, he begins planning to replace Gluttony with something far more useful. Just then, a strange-looking upperclassman barges in, announcing Karia's arrival. He declares that he's here to select a few morons from Class E to become his subordinates. Without hesitation, he orders everyone to display their status and skills for evaluation, silencing the room's buzzing protests with a sharp glare. Kaoru stands up, calm but firm. She argues that just because they share the same academy doesn't mean they're obligated to reveal their personal status screens. Several students nod in agreement. That's when a long-haired, overweight guy steps forward to confront her. He sneers and asks if she really believes they're equals. He boasts that he and his group have been clearing dungeons since middle school. They're on an entirely different level. Showing their terminals isn't a request, he says. It's an order. To emphasize his point, he releases his aura, a crushing pressure that fills the classroom and forces everyone into silence. He scans the room mockingly, asking if anyone still dares to complain. Then his gaze lands on Soda. With a cruel grin, he calls him out from his seat, loudly mocking him as fat and ordering him to step forward first. Soda is stunned. Being called fat by someone just as overweight is almost absurd. Still, he walks to the front and reluctantly displays his stats. The upperclassman bursts into laughter the moment he sees them. The numbers are pathetically low. Disgusted, he rejects Soda on the spot. For a brief second, Soda imagines smashing his fist into the bastard's face, but he swallows the urge. Right now, it's better to play the role of a weak, insignificant mob character. And wait. After dismissing the fat mob as useless, the arrogant upperclassman smirks and invites Sanju Sakurako, also known as Pink-chan, into his party simply because she's cute. She's one of the main heroines of Dun X, a special playable character, and a major reason the game became such a massive hit. Even though no one in Class A can currently match Korea's strength, Sakurako doesn't move an inch, because the main character has just arrived. Akagi Yuma boldly declares that he will become the strongest student in the academy, or at least, that's the plan. The upperclassmen burst into laughter, mocking his confidence. In response, Korea releases his aura, once again an overwhelming pressure that paralyzes Class E and silences the room instantly. Despite his superior stats, Korea decides to humor Yuma. He challenges him to a formal duel 1 month from now to see whether he truly has the potential to become the strongest. He warns Yuma that the academy is filled with monsters in human form. If Yuma can't even defeat him, then he'd better drop the bold attitude. Without hesitation, Yuma accepts the challenge with a confident grin. Korea turns and walks out of the classroom, declaring that he'll remember this moment. He hopes the cocky first year is prepared to lose an arm when the day of the duel arrives. The tension in the room lingers long after he leaves. After the jerks clear out, Classy immediately rushes to Yuma's side, as if he's some kind of hero who just saved them from that freak show. A whole month? That's a mercy granted by the monstrous Karia. Yuma better make every second of that deadline count, or he's going to end up as Karia's punching bag. Someone from the back shouts in admiration for Yuma, praising him for jumping into the fray at the perfect moment. Others cheer along. Even Sakurako thanks him for standing up for her and saving her right when it mattered most. Watching it all unfold, Kaoru can't help but admire Yuma's noble spirit, the very reason she enrolled here in the first place. The second reason, of course, is that she wanted to distance herself from her fiancé, Soda. She recalls the old Soda, strong, protective, the type who would beat up anyone who threatened her, yet still smiled gently. But that Soda is gone. What remains is a shadow of his former self, the very reason she finally left him. Even so, she couldn't help but be impressed when he passed the entrance exam. His parents had begged her to train him in sword skills, but this giant blob refuses to follow any schedule. He shuts down practice sessions midway, whining that it's unnecessary. Kaoru blames herself for lowering her standards to match his pace, for adapting to his comfort zone, a choice that helped create the blob he has become. That's why she left him that day. She can't help but wish he had the guts Yuma has. Maybe things would have been different. Even now, as she watches him, she sees not a single spark of motivation. All she wants is to end this futile training. She feels that her love for him has completely vanished since then, so she decides to focus on leveling up and simply letting him be. On top of that, she has a serious problem to deal with. She needs to nullify the magical marriage contract before Soda can pressure her into doing anything reckless. Meanwhile, Soda recalls the storyline of visiting his house after adventurer school. But stepping inside Narumi's general store, his own home, feels oddly strange. Just then, his mother and cute little sister greet him warmly, sparking a wave of nostalgia. He realizes these are likely fragments of Soda's memories, representing a sense of family in this world. That's when he understands that this world is filling in the gaps of missing information. Excited, he becomes eager to dive into a dungeon and experiment. However, his room is a complete mess. He can't just ignore it. He decides to clean it up first. Thankfully, Soda's memories prove surprisingly helpful, giving him insight at the right moments. He wishes he could activate this ability on demand. While cleaning, he wonders about Kaoru's earlier invitation. Then, he discovers a magical marriage contract between him and Kaoru, which leaves him completely shocked. A magical marriage contract with the class beauty? That's a serious plot twist. He tries to recall how it happened, but all he remembers is scribbling on it with Kaoru shrugging. He decides to set it aside for later. He asks the receptionist to register him for the dungeon. Once signed up, he pushes through a massive crowd of adventurers just to reach the dungeon entrance. Passing through the gate barrier, he hastily moves forward to lose the swarm of people behind him, only to run straight into a slime monster. With a single swing of his bat, Soda claims his first subjugation. He blushes and smiles. This is really the world of Dunx. Following the mental map in his head, he finds a slime-filled chamber and begins grinding his level by letting the slimes merge and multiply. After a few minutes of swinging, the blob finally levels up, bidding farewell to the days of feeling weak and inferior. He notices something strange. No one else is using this area as a hunting ground. It isn't off-limits, though, which makes it perfect for experimentation. Here, skills cannot normally be used without leveling, except for 3 exceptions. 1. Overpowering a low-ranking foe. 2. Producing light for a torch. And 3. Minor healing, which he can already do. Curious, he tests manual skill activation and quickly discovers it behaves differently than expected. Excited, he tries the Void/Shock. The attack tears through his bat like a beam, blasting through the tunnel and leaving him utterly shocked. And then, blackout. Ever since the long-haired, overweight guy of Class D was 12, during his first year of middle school, he has been diving into the dungeon world. Even back then, he earned the title of the second lowest in Class D. But that didn't bother him. There's always Class C to roast afterward. Soda wakes up in the guild's medical office, where a nurse fusses over him, thinking he lost magical power during the fight with the slime. He knows the truth, of course, but he doesn't correct her. She might assume he's completely lost his mind. At the moment, this blob is burdened with 4 major debuffs. 1. His 100-kilogram body. 2. Soda's memories. 3. Being hated by Kaoru. 4. His ridiculously low status. And now, this world seems determined to add a 5th. At home, his mother serves a massive dinner portion, clearly prepared just for him. Apparently, Soda's family is accustomed to his all-you-can-eat habits, though they probably secretly wonder if he might eat them someday. Trying to be reasonable, he politely asks his mother to reduce the mountain-sized portion and include some vegetables next time. The family stares in shock at his sudden change in demands. Moving on, he thinks about how Class E is trembling at the thought of Yuma and Karya's duel next month. Even after that, there's the looming school-wide war involving the upperclassmen. He needs as much information about this world as possible, figuring out how and why he was transported here in the first place. At first, he wants to understand the unlearned skill he unleashed yesterday. He also wonders if he's the only one capable of using it. If so, it could throw the entire story into chaos, a risk that wouldn't be in his favor. For now, he decides to focus on mastering skill training. After leaving his little sister at home, Soda bumps into Class D's second lowest jerk. Soda doesn't want to start trouble, but his sister steps in, telling the snob how he should apologize. Embarrassed, the Class D brat backs off, muttering that Class E can give their best. Things get complicated for him, though, because his sister is dying to see the dungeon monsters herself. Though she's only 15 and can't officially register, Soda pretends she can, letting her leave with a grin. At the guild library, Soda studies ways to understand his new skill, exploring auto-casting and manual casting. But the world offers no information on manual casting, confirming that he might be the only one to have figured it out. Suddenly, the Class D jerk spots him and mocks him for studying casting, laughing at his stupid face for losing to a slime. Even outside, his sister overhears the commotion, hearing some brat insult the greaseball who got beaten by a slime. 2 days ago, this guy had offered to protect Soda, which really meant he wanted to make him a carrier. Just as Soda is about to refuse, the guy unleashes his aura, forcing him to comply, and coldly declares that small fry like Soda mean nothing at this school. In that moment, everything goes dark. He realizes that, despite his skills, He is insignificant here. People would be better off without him. Tears well up in his eyes, but before the Class D jerk can take further advantage, his little sister swoops in, shoving him away from her brother. Suddenly, Soda remembers that there is a place where he belongs, home. As his sister tries to pull him away, the Class D jerk grabs her by the collar. Soda desperately urges her to apologize. Though the jerk's aura doesn't faze his sister, Soda tries to speak for her, but then his body moves on its own, pushing the jerk back, infuriating him even more. Sweat pours down Soda as he autocasts a command, demanding the blob to release him before things escalate. Out of nowhere, an armored figure jumps in, asking if she can take on the long-haired, overweight jerk instead. The armored lady is revealed to be Tenma Akira, a chubby girl disguised under heavy armor, ranked second in Class A. She chooses to intervene on Soda's behalf, though she explains her desire for her colleagues to get along. The jerk grudgingly backs off, swearing he'll remember this. Soda recalls Tenma as a beautiful girl from Class A who had been cursed with a chubby, unattractive body. She gives a thumbs up to both Soda and his sister for standing up for themselves. After apologizing to Soda for the commotion, she takes him aside. In a brief, quiet chat, she admits that she had wanted his attention, especially since he had stopped calling her name before the entrance ceremony. That's when Soda realizes it wasn't heroism or pride that drove him to confront the jerk. It was his feelings for his little sister, and for the first time, he wonders if that Class D jerk might actually have a hint of decency buried somewhere after all. Suddenly, he blurts out that he'll pay attention to Kano, since he's busy with adventurer school, which smooths over the tension. He then tells the sweet girl to head home early. She still has dungeon grinding to do. On the way, he spots that soaking mushroom and promises Kano that he'll take her to the dungeon one day. She beams with happiness, though he mutters that if he's aiming for that school, it's practically inevitable, which slightly dampens her excitement. The next day, Soda publicly apologizes for the incident with the Class D jerk, whose antics had driven half the students to quit. That arrogant, flashy brat demands Soda follow him immediately. In that moment, Soda realizes his goal here: return to where he came from, while also creating a place where someone like him could protect his family and repay Soda. By focusing on his short-term goal of leveling up, he hopes to avoid getting tangled in events that didn't happen in the original game. Later, Soda is surprised to see Kaoru standing at his front door, a blurry echo of his memories. He recalls a strange promise they had made to go to school together. Lost in thought as he follows her, he wonders if Soda would blabber in this situation. Then Kaoru turns and reveals she won't be joining his party. Not because of him, but because he was defeated by a slime. She's joining Yuma's party instead. A strange feeling bubbles up in his chest. He remembers Kaoru joining the world-saving party later, and that she's now on first-name terms with Yuma. The other students laugh at the goofball, who lost to a slime, but Yuma silences them. Soda really draws the short straw here. His so-called defeat is an ongoing headache in this new reality. In the original game, Yuma is the main character players control, but in this update, it's the other way around. With a gentle smile, Yuma tries to comfort Soda, keeping his distance to avoid disrupting the story. From that point, everyone starts calling him Boo Tao, though at this stage of the game, no one officially named Soda that yet. After that, Mirai-sensei enters the room and announces the start of the dungeon adventure grouping. He asks everyone to introduce themselves again, beginning with Yuma, a one-handed sword warrior from Tokyo. Next is Kaoru, and the introductions continue. Soda tells himself to keep a low profile this time. He decides to act more cheerful and approachable. When his turn comes, he stands up straight and declares that he is an aspiring priest who uses a bat as his weapon. Strangely, Sensei doesn't bat an eye, and neither does anyone else. Only Kaoru seems to feel secondhand embarrassment for this idiot. Before long, the classroom starts to empty as everyone shifts into party forming mode. The orientation continues as Ray shows them the arena and the medical office. He then instructs the students to form groups of 3 to 5 in order to receive a pass to access the first and second floors of the dungeon. They are given a 1 hour time limit. Soda does his best to join a party, but no one wants the ugly pig who was defeated by a slime. From a distance, he notices Yuma turning down several girls. He's shocked when Yuma suddenly walks toward him and asks to team up. Even with the unexpected offer, Soda hesitates. He believes the story might fall apart if he gets too close to the main NPC. He plans to use Kaoru as an excuse to refuse, only for Kaoru to approach them and ask if she can join the party as well. Somehow this blob ends up joining the main character's squad after all. After that, Soda becomes extremely cautious, worried that Kaoru might start suspecting something. Trying to change the mood, Soda asks Yuma why he wants to become an adventurer. Yuma answers sincerely, speaking out of admiration for heroes. In that moment, Soda realizes that this vessel, who now feels so real, is just a high school freshman. For the first time, he stops seeing Yuma as a character and starts seeing him as a human being. Soda tells Yuma that he's admirable. Kaoru is shocked by his sudden sincerity, and Soda immediately realizes he may have just crossed a line. After the orientation ends, Soda plans to head straight into the dungeon to make up for lost time. But before he can leave, Yuma suddenly invites him to join his party for a run to the third floor. Later, after her bath, Kaoru receives a text from Sakurako asking about the slime incident. Instead of replying right away, she decides to check on Soda herself. She can't simply shut him out, especially after acting cold and distancing herself from her brother since spring break. Without hesitation, Kaoru blurts out that she wants to nullify their magical marriage contract. Soda ends up walking with her back to school as they talk. Still, something feels different to her. Ever since that day she dragged him out, Soda has changed. He doesn't call as often anymore. He carries himself with a new sense of certainty. Most surprising of all, he doesn't stare at her chest anymore, which, oddly enough, unsettles her. Even after she rejects his party invitation, she's stunned by how calmly he accepts it and even wishes her good luck with Yuma. She begins to wonder if he has truly lost interest in her, especially after seeing him humiliated and how Yuma handled the situation. That thought pushes her to want the contract canceled even more. The magical contract contains a special condition. She must never fall in love with someone else. There's no stated penalty, but the restriction alone weighs heavily on her. Meanwhile, Yuma approaches Kaoru about joining his party, partly because she stood up against Class D earlier. Now too, an aspiring wizard, and Sakurako, an aspiring priest, also join Yuma's squad. Yuma is scheduled to face Karia in a match 1 month from now, likely when they reach around level 10. As adventurers level up, they can eventually qualify for advanced jobs such as saint or samurai. Kaoru believes she can achieve all of that alongside Yuma's party. To break the ice, she brings up how Yuma could improve on his last stunt. However, Yuma shifts the topic and praises her for clearing floor 31. That's when she realizes he's being considerate of Soda's feelings. But despite that kindness, all Kaoru truly wants is to distance herself from Soda for good. Moving on, Yuma makes it clear that if no one objects to Soda joining, he wants the three of them to help him out. He's also fired up about his upcoming fight with Karia. When Yuma directly asks Soda to join, Soda responds with a question of his own. Why me? Yuma explains that it's because Soda praised him for standing up against Class D, but Soda shakes his head and says that a dead weight like him would only drag the party down. Kaoru freezes. Why would he say something like that? In her mind, he's already proven he's changed. The way he smashed that slime and even handled an orc, yet he still talks about himself like he's worthless. After a week in this world, Soda finally reaches level 4. In the end, He turns down Yuma's offer and continues alone. On his solo run, he pushes forward to the fifth floor. There are plenty of dungeon gimmicks he remembers from the game, including the bridge trap. The trick is simple. Let an orc call its allies and lure them into chasing you across the bridge. Once enough monsters are on it, cut the rope. The fall damage stacks, boosting the adventurer's EXP efficiently. Soda is also targeting another gimmick, the gate. It might be connected to the adventurer school itself, something he finds incredibly useful. What he can't understand is why no one else seems to be using either the slime floor or the gate on the second or third floors. It's free experience and fast travel, yet everyone ignores it. Using auto casting, Soda teleports through the gate. The coordinates match the game's data exactly, sending him straight into the basement of the school. Satisfied with his findings, he decides to head home for the day, only to be startled when Murai-sensei suddenly appears behind him, asking what he's doing there on a day off. Soda begins to wonder whether Murai-sensei knows about the gate, or if he's suspicious that Soda managed to reach the fifth floor so quickly. Nervous, Soda makes up an excuse, saying he forgot something at school on Friday and had to come all the way back from the dungeon to retrieve it. He adds that he meant to go home early, but lost track of time. Surprisingly, Mirai-sensei seems to accept the explanation. That alone confirms something for Soda. No one knows anything about the gate, or at the very least, Mirai-sensei is choosing to turn a blind eye. Soda had assumed everyone knew about it, just like in the game. Realizing that may not be the case, he decides to use the regular dungeon route starting tomorrow. The next day, Soda carefully sets up the bridge trap again. Orcs are slow but hit incredibly hard, so timing is everything. Out of nowhere, he notices an injured adventurer desperately calling for help. The man begs Soda to save his friend, who's trapped ahead under a swarm of orcs. Without thinking too much, Soda strikes one of the orcs to draw their attention, causing chaos among the group. He lifts the injured guy onto his shoulder and sprints toward the bridge. Once enough orcs crowd onto it, Soda swiftly cuts the rope. The bridge collapses, sending the monsters plunging to their deaths. Moments later, the medical squad arrives. The injured, four-eyed adventurer keeps asking for the chubby guy who saved him, but Soda has already slipped away unnoticed. Later, while checking the guild records, Soda is stunned to learn that the injured man's party was severely wounded, and two of them died shortly after. A chill runs down his spine. For the first time, he feels genuine fear. He remembers how much he used to enjoy this game. Back then, death was just a mechanic, a temporary setback before respawning. But this isn't a game anymore. There is no respawn. As the weight of that truth sinks in, Soda's thoughts spiral. He realizes how recklessly he has been treating everything since arriving in this world. It could have been him lying there. It could have been his name on that list. And just like that, the real horror begins. Later, Kano checks up on him, but he brushes it off by asking if she'd join him in the dungeon, even if it's against the law. At first, she's completely shocked by the sudden invitation. She tries to reason with her brother, saying this could cost them dearly, even if he claims to know a backdoor into the dungeon. But Soda pushes harder, arguing that powering up could help her at school. He lays out a plan. She needs to master the skill Fake, so she can feed opponents false information. Still, Kano demands to know why he's suddenly pushing such a reckless idea when he refused to do it before. In response, he reminds her of what she witnessed at the library. He paints a vivid picture of how outsiders are treated like nobodies in that school. At times like that, Soda only wants his little sister to be strong enough to defend herself. Somehow, Kano buys his explanation even though half of it is a lie. In the end, all that matters to him is that she's smiling again. Later, Soda recalls a future route where several characters meet brutal deaths, and the Narumi family are nothing more than background mobs. Knowing what's coming is an advantage in itself, which is why leveling up is crucial. He refuses to sit back and watch his loved ones fall. A week later, Sota and Kano take the long way to school, since a few students recognize his sister. Afterward, they slip into the gate unnoticed. When they reach the bridge trap, Sota explains the plan. She must cut the string once he lures a large group of orcs onto it. Over the past week, they tested different tools, but settled on scissors for Kano and a blade for Sota. When the first orc charges in, Kano hesitates and fails to cut the string. Sota dives in at the last second and slices it himself. It's her first real encounter, and guilt washes over her for putting her brother in danger. Then, for a brief moment, Sota senses something. Kano is leveling up rapidly, at least 5 levels, just as she mutters the jaw change phrase. He quickly tells her to stop. He explains that if she trains properly, she could expand her skill by 3 more tiers. He mutters that once she feels the difference, it'll hit like a smackdown. On the other hand, Yuma's squad finally reaches level 5, with Yuma sticking to the thief path on the higher side of the fighter class. There's only 1 week left before Yuma and Karya's dungeon match. In the meantime, Sota makes sure Kano doesn't spill a single detail about the bridge trap hunting spot. She understands the risk. If word gets out, a bunch of opportunistic jerks will start digging for intel the moment they hear rumors of the place. Still, Sota feels uneasy seeing how deeply Kano trusts Buto. He can't tell whether her loyalty is genuine or if she's putting on a convincing act. That uncertainty keeps him on edge. Meanwhile, Yuma and Kaoru are sparring. After defeating Kaoru, Yuma boasts about finally getting the feel of real sword fights and thanks him for the help. Soaked in sweat, Kaoru admits he was simply replicating Karya's battle records. Even so, Yuma remains grateful. Then Kaoru, almost desperately, asks whether Yuma truly stands a chance against Karya. Yuma answers, honestly, he doesn't know. Kaoru reminds him that withdrawing is still an option. But Yuma refuses. He won't pass up the chance to overthrow that arrogant jerk. Truthfully, he's dead set on proving himself. The man has guts, though sometimes it sounds like he has a death wish. Calm and level-headed as he seems, he rejects the idea of letting those scumbags label them as classy cowards. He decides he won't lose. While Sota buys Kano a new pair of shoes, Karya's party continues grinding inside the dungeon. Yuma's team trains relentlessly on their own time. Within a month, driven by Yuma's fierce determination, they reach level 6. Even then, Kaoru can't help but wonder what Sota is plotting behind the scenes. At Karya's event, Sota observes that Yuma's leveling progressed smoothly to level 6. But he also notes that Yuma will need a special weapon to secure victory. Even so, Sota is certain Yuma has prepared a solid plan for this round. Around them, Class D openly mocks Class E for daring to believe they stand a chance. Meanwhile, Class E silently prays for Yuma's win. Suddenly, a bulky member of Class D approaches Sakurako to harass her, but Naoto swiftly knocks his hand away. A fight breaks out. As Sota watches, he realizes he can't even track the man's sword swings. Even at level 8, he wonders if he would stand no chance against that monster. Besides that, Kaoru understands that physique plays a huge role within their squad. Even if levels are the same, Kariya at level 11 with that heavily built frame is a dangerous combination. Raw stats alone won't flip the table when there's that kind of level gap. That's where their secret weapon comes in. During the face-off, Yuma calls out to Kariya, taunting him, asking if his power is leaking out too early or if he's already scared. Kariya throws the same jab back and Yuma casually replies that they might just wear each other down at this rate. Then the problem reveals itself. Kariya is carrying the static sword, a troublesome weapon that drains an opponent's agility and carries a medium chance of paralyzing them. Fortunately, Yuma already knows about this hidden card. He stays extremely cautious, even though most of the spectators are clueless about the blade's effect. Meanwhile, Sota notices Kariya's favorite reckless tactic. He intentionally takes a slash just to counter with a far heavier blow, almost as if he finds it amusing. On the next exchange, Yuma unleashes Double Sting, driving the attack hard enough to punch a hole straight through Kariya's armor. Elsewhere, Kuki from Class 1B kicks away the lowest-ranking greaseball from Class D. She can't stand disorder in the ranking system, especially not when she's overseeing things. Using her connections, she had already pulled strings to secure the arena space for Kariya's duel against Class E. Still, she can't help but wonder, what if Kariya actually loses? A Class D girl suddenly grabs her foot, desperately arguing that Kariya's hard work won't let him fall to someone at level 7. She rants that the caste system exists precisely to keep lower levels in their place, right before someone kicks her square in the face. At that moment, Kariya arrives and apologizes for the disturbance, though he claims he knew nothing about the incident at the library. Afterward, he turns to leave and resume his training. Kuki asks whether he plans to help his own classmates from Class D. Kariya doesn't even look back. He coldly replies that she can do whatever she wants with them. It turns out Kariya was fully aware of the static sword's so-called cheap trick. That's why he came prepared, wearing stun resistance armor. Kariya's gameplay proves brutally solid. He tosses Yuma around like a basketball. The guy came prepared with every trick in the book to secure this victory. Even so, Kariya stays cautious, half expecting the so-called loser to pull out a hidden move. But this is new territory for Yuma. He's being completely overwhelmed by this towering brute. After several merciless exchanges, Yuma collapses. Sakurako desperately begs Kariya to stop, but the outcome is already decided. Unable to continue, Yuma suffers a crushing defeat at the hands of Class D's Kariya Izumu. After his victory, Kariya addresses Class E, ordering them to carve this humiliation into their memories, to remember exactly who stands above them. He declares that they should obey their upperclassmen because they are nothing more than slaves in this hierarchy. He then relays a message from Kuki of Class 1B. They're looking for gophers. Anyone who has a problem with that can step forward and challenge him. Class D erupts with excitement at the thought of working these boneheads to the ground, buried under humiliation. Yuma mutters that he's weak. He apologizes for letting everyone down, but still swears he'll win next time. From the sidelines, Sota quietly burns with resentment. Yet he knows he can't interfere too much. According to the original storyline, the other classes were bound to dominate them sooner or later. He feels sorry for Yuma, but something else bothers him more. How did Kariya know to prepare a countermeasure against the static sword? It's a rare weapon. No one in this world should have anticipated it. And Kariya's stun resistance armor isn't even the same version from the game. That realization sends a chill down Sota's spine. Unlike him, there must be other players who were transported into this world. Now he has more questions than answers. Who allowed Yuma to obtain the static sword? Who leaked that information to Kariya? And what are their true motives? On top of that, he needs to uncover the truth behind their transportation by tracing the storyline of Dunx itself. Worst still, there's a high chance those mysterious lurkers could turn hostile toward him sooner rather than later. At the hospital, Kaoru, Sakurako, now too, and a nurse stand beside Yuma's bed. The nurse assures him there are no internal or external injuries. He's free to walk once he regains his strength. As Yuma thanks everyone for their support, Now too steps forward and thanks him for fighting on their behalf. He also mentions that the upperclassmen somehow caught wind of the static sword strategy. Even so, he insists the fight wasn't meaningless. Finally, Yuma tells his squad to return to Class A. He just needs some time to rest. On the way back, Kaoru quietly remarks that Yuma looks better than she expected. Bursting that small comfort, Naoto bluntly replies that Yuma is just pretending. He doesn't want to cause panic or make anyone worry. Slamming his fist against the wall, Naoto angrily translates what Yuma really means. He wants everyone to leave him the hell alone. Elsewhere, Kikuchi tracks down Sota, convinced that the young savior who rescued him before must be from this school. He thanks Sota for saving his life. Apparently, Kikuchi's party had run into another group that tipped them off about a treasure-filled location as an apology. That location turned out to be the Lord Orc's nest. 2 of Kikuchi's teammates died there. Sota feels a twinge of guilt. He explains that the guild had already issued a warning about an orc swarm on the 5th floor. If Kikuchi keeps wandering around there, he could get caught again. Suddenly, Kikuchi spots the very party that misled them, the ones indirectly responsible for his teammates' deaths. It's Adventure School's Class D squad, led by Kariya. One of the long-haired members shoves 4 eyes aside, sneering that small fries like them deserved a taste of the orcs after rejecting their generous invitation. They mock Kikuchi for being dumb enough not to know that the 5th floor is crawling with nothing but deadly trash mobs. Sota can't promise immediate justice, but he quietly assures Kikuchi that one day they'll get what's coming to them. Still, Sota finds himself in an awkward position. First, he plays the hero and saves someone. Now he's tangled in the fallout of someone else's tragedy. Unbeknownst to him, Kaoru witnesses the entire exchange, seeing Sota step in to help the broken Kikuchi after Class D humiliated him. That night, Kaoru's dreams grow stranger than usual. She dreams of herself as a pupa, waiting for the right moment to transform. Eventually, she becomes a butterfly, symbolizing her hope to rise above everything. But when she spreads her wings, the world awaiting her is nothing like she imagined. It feels distant, wrong. Even with her new wings, she sees Yuma, defeated and captured. Her hopes shatter, and then she sees Sota, the very person she once looked down on, steadily moving forward while everyone else falters. The vision fractures. Kaoru jolts awake. Sitting upright in bed, her head feels numb, her mind flooded with endless, unsettling thoughts. Heading outside, Kaoru suddenly stops when she notices Yuma walking ahead with Naoto, both of them carrying stacks of supplies. It doesn't take long for her to realize the truth. They're delivering goods to Class D, straight from the dormitory. Before she can overthink it, Kaoru rushes forward and grabs some of the load from Yuma's hands. The sudden gesture catches him off guard, leaving him momentarily speechless, unnoticed by them. Soda trails quietly behind. When they arrive at Class D's dormitory, the long-haired blob is busy showing off in front of a group of girls. He brags about how his older brother received an invitation to some exclusive, high-end party. He keeps rambling about it being a branch of the colors, while another girl excitedly asks if Kura received an invite too. Ignoring the obnoxious scene, Yuma calmly mentions that he plans to challenge the 6th floor today. He asks Kaoru about her own plans. With a faintly sour expression, she mutters that she'll be training solo for now. Later, as she runs alone, her thoughts refuse to settle. She's stopped diving into the dungeon with Yuma and the others. She remembers the warmth and comfort she once felt with that party. But now, She can't shake the feeling that she had forced herself to belong there. The next day, Kaoru walks ahead once more, aware that Suda is following behind her. She wonders what excuse she should come up with today. Out of nowhere, Soda calls out, asking if she's all right. The sudden question makes her flinch. When she turns to face him, she doesn't know how to respond. After widening the distance between them, Soda admits he's worried about her. Kaoru realizes her emotions must be written all over her face. Quietly, she confesses that seeing Yuma lose so badly shocked her more than she expected. Getting straight to the point, Soda asks if she's disappointed in him. The bluntness of the question catches her off guard. After a pause, she answers honestly. She just didn't want to see him lose like that. With a bitter expression, she insists that he won't lose, her voice trembling as tears gather in her eyes. Kaoru admits she's disappointed, and that, somewhere along the way, she lost the spark that kept her moving forward. Then she finally says it out loud. She's no longer confident about continuing this adventure of high school life. For Sota, that confession hits hard. Even so, he simply walks past her and says she should do whatever she wants. That alone is more than enough. Her jaw drops at how casually cool he sounds. In just a few words, her childhood friend, the very guy she once treated like background noise, shakes her to the core. She turns to glance at his retreating figure, recalling the image of Yuma collapsing at Karya's event. Something clicks. Without hesitation, Kaoru dashes toward her classroom. She bursts in to find Yuma and the others. Catching her breath, she apologizes for missing out on important dungeon runs, but declares that she's definitely going with them today. She's sorry for distancing herself. Yuma smiles and admits he never expected her to have such a strong mentality. That catches her off guard. Naota stays quiet while Sakurako can't help thinking that side of Kaoru is actually pretty cute. As she rejoins her squad, a strange calm and warmth settle over her, something Sota quietly notices from afar. Later, inside the dungeon, Kaoru fights alongside Yuma and the others against a giant wolf. In the middle of the clash, Yuma knocks the beast off balance and shouts for Kaoru to finish it. She knows he could have ended it himself. He's giving her the kill. Yuma wants her to gain the credit to level up faster. With a decisive strike, Kaoru slashes the wolf clean in half. As it falls, she reflects on how far she's come and how much things have changed. Just as Kaoru reaches level 7, she suddenly feels the urge to thank Soda for pushing her forward. Ironically, Soda doesn't even show up at school the next day. Meanwhile, his adorable little sister, Kano, finally hits level 7 as well. Running around in pure excitement, the energetic little bunny proudly declares that she's learned more about dungeon diving in just over a month than she ever expected. It turns out that efficient hunting spots like the bridge trap are still far from common knowledge. Aside from the transported players from the other world, almost no one knows about these optimal farming routes. Even Kikuchi confirms this when Soda asks around. Still, something continues to bother Soda, a loose thread he can't ignore. The DLC in game terms. DLC downloadable content refers to additional states, scenarios, items, or job classes added after the base game's release. Sometimes they cost extra. Sometimes they're free. Sometimes they're unlocked by pure chance. Resting for a moment, Soda decides they need to push deeper to the 7th floor. Leveling up is already getting harder at their current stage. He assures Kano that, at their level, it should be manageable. Then he carefully outlines his plan. If they're lucky, they might encounter the Armored Knight job while hunting there. He excitedly explains that the Armored Knight class has a unique feature: the ability to create and command golems. Even better, its DLC expansion includes the rare item known as the Golem's Heart. Eventually, Sota manages to acquire the shiny new armored knight job, and he is completely disappointed. The summoned golems are painfully slow and clunky. These ugly constructs are nowhere near suitable for mounted combat. Riding them into battle is out of the question. Meanwhile, half of Yuma's squad is already cruising around on a massive golem. For newcomers trapped in this world with no logout option, choosing a stable, defensive job like that makes perfect sense. Hearing this, Kano gets excited about the plan. But Sota quickly shifts gears, mentioning there's an even better hunting ground they could try. If she's willing to reconsider Plan A, that comment makes Kano pause. Sota suddenly remembers something strange. He had a dual sword style skill since the very beginning, yet he has no memory of unlocking it. His question triggers something. A buried memory resurfaces. His own first skill, gluttony. Thinking about the dual sword style, Sota recalls that this extra skill normally comes from the high-ranking samurai class. The raid damage from that style is massive. With two blades striking in tandem, each technique can land 4 hits in rapid succession, making the wielder far more dangerous than they appear. As they climb the mountain, Sota confirms something troubling. Kano has never defeated a monster entirely on her own, so he briefs her on their next target, a demon wolf known as a warg. This time, he intends to let his little sister handle it alone. Kano gives him a confident thumbs up. When they arrive, she squares off against the warg, activating her dual sword style. Her first strike completely misses, only managing to enrage the beast and slice down a massive tree behind it. The wolf snarls and lunges at her with terrifying speed, but Kano stays her ground. At the perfect moment, she pivots and unleashes a clean cross slash, cutting the charging mass of fur and muscle in half like a cupcake. Her first solo victory. Beaming, she turns to Sota and asks if she looked super strong. Watching her, Sota can't help but wonder, are others in this world just as talented as she is? Even so, he feels relieved to have her fighting by his side. For 2 years now, he's relied on scraps of knowledge from the original game. With that knowledge, the road ahead has felt manageable. He prepared countermeasures in advance, confident that foresight alone would carry him. But he overlooked something important. This world isn't just a copy of the game. It allows room for deviation, preparation, and change. And the worst may still be ahead. Further up the path, they discover a massive crater in the ground. Jumping inside, they find themselves before a towering gate. Soda's eyes light up. He tells Kano to register her magical power with the gate while they have the chance. As she steps forward to do so, Soda reminds himself of his primary objective, securing the armored knight job. At the same time, he's tempted by another path, the Faker build. At level 5, Thief is a basic job anyone can obtain, just like Yuma did. From that job comes access to the Faker skill line. The strategy works like this. Beginners grind levels to unlock 3 additional skill slots through intense training. Once those slots are secured, they can switch jobs and retain key abilities like Faker. After that, the next step is acquiring the Armored Knight job, then diving deeper into the dungeon at their own pace, stacking utility and survivability. It's a calculated build, but in a world that no longer follows the game perfectly, even the most careful plan could crumble. Upon asking, Sota tells Kano that it looks good to him and that they should catch a break here before hitting the next place. Afterward, Sota and Kano are wonder about whether this place is a castle or a fortress. Then, he reveals that it's the Citadel, a place for golems. Just when they are about to check this place out, a giant tree stands before them. They get the feeling that this dude is in no mood to attack them, which calms them down. At that moment, Sota teaches Kano how the wood golems won't attack unless you get closer. Furthermore, he points out that the crystal smudge inside the wood is actually the piece they are looking for to attain the armored knight. So, this quest item can hold a higher price at the 10th floor Obaba shop if they get their hands on it, although he thinks they can't even reach that far yet. They better try leveling up to sell this one. Pushing her sister's face, he told her for the walk around and alerts Kano that skeletons might charge at them, so they better not lower their guard. They decide to walk around this place instead. After cutting the skeleton monster's head off, Sato wonders if this next room is hiding something inside. Kano raises the question that the room might be holding a next-level treasure. Upon checking it by taking a little peek, he sees armored horned figure. The fact that that skeleton is a big deal. It comes to pass that this could be somewhat of a level 8 rare monster. By looking under the throne, Sota saw a treasure chest. Kano asks if Sota wants to fight it. Drenched in sweat, he refuses to fight this guy for now and decides to fight off some golems before they deal with this big fry. The following day, Sota is pretty much concerned about Kom, who looked really bad that day. He wonders if his words might have pushed her to feel that way, even though she never looked like that in the game. Though the lad is hoping to get the dirt on the static sword thing, he lets it go for now. Suddenly, Kano points ahead at the bonfire with burnt wood, stunning Sota, thinking that someone might be there. This bonfire gives him enough clues that his DLC idea has been a total flop. However, his brain clicks that if they spend the night here, then they haven't used the gate, which means they still could be around. He believes that it's dangerous and suddenly some dude comes running toward them in a hurry. He demands to know if Sota and Kano have any extra food lying around because they are starving like monkeys for bananas. Sota is surprised to see these guys, not feeling hesitant to chat with him. Upon asking for an explanation, this dude describes how they ran into this hole after driving a warg into a corner, which led them here by accident. Now, Sota is in a bit of a pickle as he has no way of getting out of here without shaking these guys off his back. These creeps won't shut their mouths about screaming for food as to how they have passed their limits. Well, after feeding them, the leader does his scheming to search this place out. After being full, Sota asks these guys if they better go home and take a day off. However, this guy believes that they better not lose this chance of exploring this unexplored map on the 7th floor. Although, Sota thinks this crazy people would leave this place after dealing with some golems. He whines about how those dumbass ate all his meals. Kano feels disgusted with those people's smells. Moving on, Sota uses the skill appraisal on Kano to check his status, as this skill is used to check the stats of the opponent. In this case, the other opponent would know that someone checked them out. He also reveals how this skill would piss off monsters and be considered pretty rude to other people. Afterward, Sota finds those guys to let them use appraisal on him and Kano, so that dude sees how Sota hasn't changed his job yet. Then he requests to see their skill set. Upon seeing, he notices Ryo at level 9, Masaru at level 10, and Kazuya at level 9. That's when Sota whispers to Kano how they better drop the idea of monopolizing this hunting ground after killing 1 or 2 golems. However, Masaru would like to know the topic of their discussion, but Sota throws out the idea of dividing into 2 groups for the exploration. Afterward, Sota is up against the golem, so he motivates himself to defeat this ugly thing and retrieve that crystal to sell it later. He thinks that his brother got this one, so he believes it's their cue to leave. Out of the blue, Masaru regroups with Sota to share intel about finding the skeleton monster in the castle, but Sota politely declines the offer. However, that doesn't cut it. So, Masaru uses his crappy tone to let these 2 know that they belong to the lowest class of colors. Suddenly, Sota's bone head clicks, and he remembers Class D Giant Blob's brother, getting an invite to the colors. This means that he better not get rolled into their mess and needs to pick a safe route out of there. He tells them that he worries about dragging them down like dead weight, as he isn't looking to get on their bad side. Thus, Sada takes up their offer and arrives at the skeleton room to use appraisal on it. Sada thinks that no matter the level, a five-person party can totally defeat the armored horned skeleton. Although, if the skeleton is level 11 or higher, it's going to be a tough job to take it down. Just when Kazuya takes a peek, the lad runs for his life, screaming that the skeleton is actually level 25. The horned skeleton blasts Kazuma's upper body into smithereens. While his teammates are bummed about losing a guy of their own, Sada spots the demonic skeleton making advances at them. Sada has no clue why the level 25 monster is holding this place on the 7th floor, so he lets Kano know that they are getting out of there on the run. Kano trips over at a bad time, due to Masaru's blade slashing her feet to put a stop to them. This piece of trash refuses to let them get away and let everyone die. So Sada decides to join this crappy group, letting Kano stay out of this and not get in the way. Kano is shocked to see Sada leaving her injured sister behind like some cold-hearted snob, but to him, it's a necessary sacrifice. 7 years ago, when he was getting bullied by a group of guys, Sada stormed in without hesitation to teach them a lesson. He muttered that he didn't need to pass kendo to beat the crap out of them. Kano saw the whole thing, how her brothers stepped up to protect that girl when she couldn't. That was the moment she began to admire him as a true hero. But today, she's horrified and stunned to see that same guy seemingly abandoning her to die. She snaps herself out of it, refusing to accept that this is how things end. Suddenly, Sada unleashes Void/Shock just in time, blasting the skeleton monster away from her. As he rushes in, he apologizes for not coming sooner. He had been shaking off those motion casting creeps so he could use his rare manual casting. He asks if she doubted him for a second. Not at all, Kano replies. He tells her to get as far away as possible. Running is futile against this bonehead, he explains. So she needs to go while she still can. He'll finish this here? Without another word, Sada slams his fist into the ground. The floor shatters into rubble, and both he and the grotesque Grim Reaper plunge down to the level below, leaving Kano safely above with a chance to escape. The reason he can use Void/Shock in this world didn't come easily. It was the result of countless experiments. He eventually discovered that the impact of the skill is drawn directly from the game itself, manifested through him at the cost of mana. He activates 3 abilities at once. First is Satanich's Stem Cell, a high-grade job, skill, and Demon Lord ability that consumes an enormous amount of mana in exchange for powerful regeneration. Second is Shadow Step, another high-grade job, skill, that drastically boosts agility and evasion. Last is Overdrive, which enhances combat power, visual acuity, and reflexes for a limited time. Landing below, Sada sees his opportunity and uses appraisal on the grotesque figure before him. The result reveals the enemy's identity: Woljamat, a unique boss-class skeleton noble. Job, Shadow Walker, and now the real fight begins. While Woljamat calmly reads the battlefield, Sada doesn't have the luxury of waiting for him to adapt. Now that they're locked in close combat, Sada realizes something unsettling. Even with his level 10 body, he's nowhere near as smooth as he was when fighting the top rankers in the game. Worse, he can only maintain all his active skills for about 2 minutes, barely. He vaguely remembers relying on potions like doping agents to pull this off before this greasy dungeon nightmare has dragged him out of his comfort zone and into the brutal reality of real-world dungeon death. Sada and Woljamat clash violently, trading savage blows and searching for any opening to decapitate the other. They charge at each other again and again, blades flashing, each strike meant to kill. Then it hits him. That bonehead undead is reading his movements like a seasoned veteran. 40 seconds have already passed. Even though Sata forces his skills to stay active, his body feels like it's being sliced apart from the inside. His vision blurs. His muscles tremble. Fear creeps in, whispering that this might not end the way he imagined. Gritting his teeth, Sata calls out for Woljamut to show his true strength. Is this monster underestimating him? Fine, he'll unleash disaster. Mana erupts around him as his body undergoes a drastic transformation. His frame tightening, his aura sharpening, his presence exploding with pressure. He activates Aerial. With Aerial, he can create footing anywhere in midair, granting him absolute mobility. For someone like him, built for brutal close-quarters combat, this skill is top tier. 30 seconds remain. Suddenly, Sata launches himself upward, swinging his sword with everything he has and diving straight at the Grim Reaper. But in that very moment, Uljamot begins to glow like a cursed lantern. A violent surge of power radiates from the skeleton, Noble's body, warping the air around him. The sudden aura slams into Sata like a tidal wave. For a split second, Sata drops to one knee, overwhelmed by the pressure. Then, refusing to yield, he kicks off the air again, using Aerial, soaring back into the fight. Sata charges at the beast once more with everything he has left. Above, Kano watches with one unshakable belief. Her brother will win, but that conviction doesn't erase the guilt clawing at her chest. She refuses to be his dead weight, blaming herself for being too weak. She wonders if she pushed him into this desperate fight simply because she couldn't stand on her own. No, don't think like that, she mutters, shaking her head. Then she screams at the top of her lungs, urging Sada to win against Welbamat, begging him not to let that hideous monster land another attack. Mid-air, Sada airwalks using Aerial, forcing his way forward and trying to blast the skeleton Noble's skull apart with his blade. Their clash is so violent that one entire side of the castle begins to crumble under the strain. As Sada slips from the collapsing edge, he activates the blade of Agarez and unleashes Air Break. A blinding explosion of radiant light erupts, tearing through the central structure of the fortress. Kano sees it happen in horror and awe. Even Masaru and Reo, fleeing outside, turn in shock as the massive blast shakes the entire dungeon floor. When the dust settles, Sada can barely stand. He silently apologizes to Butao for pushing his body beyond its limits and inflicting so much damage on himself. But the outcome is clear. Sada stands victorious over Woldamat's shattered remains, having torn the unique boss apart in a devastating finale. Sweat pours down his face as he mutters that taking the monster down was one hell of a ride. Suddenly, Kano feels a faint surge of power flow through her. She knows she didn't fight, but somehow she gained something from this. Even so, the realization hits her hard. She needs to grow stronger. She refuses to remain a burden. Without hesitation, she jumps down to Sada's side, only to find him collapsed on the ground, completely spent. When she asks if he's okay, Sada lets out a weak giggle. He admits he went all out, and now his legs won't even respond. He apologizes for passing out at such a critical moment. Kano bursts into tears, thanking her brother as he lies there looking like a crushed rat on the battlefield. Even in his battered state, Sada confirms that Kano is unharmed. He insists he's fine. His legs are just beyond their limit, and practically useless for now. Still, at his level, he's confident his recovery will be much faster this time. He quickly dismisses the idea of visiting the medical office. If they appraise him during treatment, they might uncover too much. secrets about his skills and abilities that he has no intention of making public. For now, he'll heal in silence. Kaino forces a sour expression, still feeling guilty for being dead weight, especially after her foot was cut by Masaru. At that moment, Sada quietly asks his little sister for a favor. He needs a piggyback ride, not to escape, but to bury Kazuma, who suffered the worst fate in that battle. The poor guy had been blasted away without even a chance to defend himself. Sada can't help but feel sorry for him. After laying Kazuma to rest, he offers a short prayer and pays his respects. That's when Sada explains why he chose to fight Woljamut head-on. He could have used Void/Shock to create an opening and escape with Kano, but abandoning the others, even those jerks, would have haunted him. Leaving them to die didn't sit right with him. Even so, he admits something heavier. He blames himself for dragging Kano into the dungeon in the first place. She got hurt because of him. The so-called gluttony lord lowers his head and bows deeply, apologizing for putting her life in danger. Caught off guard, Kano accepts his apology, but reminds him that she followed him by choice. She went in there because he's her brother. As they prepare to leave, Kano hesitates. Is burying Kazuma even a good idea? What if his teammates come back for him? Sada reassures her. Dungeons have their own regeneration systems. They repair structural damage, rebuild traps like the broken bridge, and even absorb foreign objects left behind. A corpse wouldn't last a day here. The castle itself would be restored within 24 hours. Still, that doesn't matter to him. Some things deserve respect even if they'll eventually vanish without a trace. Right on cue, Sada's stomach growls loudly. He orders Kano to grab a mountain of food from the store. That fight burned through an absurd amount of energy, and he's lost a ton of weight. While he devours the food like a bottomless pit, Kano asks if it's really safe to move forward to the 10th floor. Turns out, Sada already has a plan. He intends to visit Obaba's shop on the 10th floor to recover properly. It's safer than going back to the medical office. If anyone at school discovers his true level, the competitive atmosphere would become a nightmare. Worse, sticking around campus too long might attract dangerous attention. After defeating Woljamut, Sada has reached level 19 thanks to his gluttony skill. Even Kano hit level 19 from participating in the boss battle, something that paid off massively once she started eating to replenish herself. As Sada's fat gradually returns and his strength stabilizes, Kano listens carefully, still unaware of what kind of place Obaba's shop really is, and what it might mean for them next. Sate tells Kano to take better care of her clothes. Obaba's shop, he explains, carries a collection of rare and high-quality items. It's a hidden store located deep within the dungeon. He's planning to resell some of their loot there. Though he's not entirely sure whether that's officially allowed. With the head of the family's approval, however, they might be able to negotiate a good deal. More importantly, they need money. Their inventory isn't even complete yet, and at the very least, they need enough funds to rent proper equipment. As they descend the stairs toward the 10th floor, Kano, usually the cautious one, sails to sense the danger ahead. She rushes forward to unlock the gate. Sada reacts too late. The moment the gate opens, a massive minotaur steps forward, the floor's gatekeeper. It roars and immediately swings at Kano with murderous intent. Before the blow can land, another door creaks open behind them. A flash of light erupts, and the gatekeeper's head explodes in an instant. Kano freezes. First, she almost dies. Then, the monster dies even faster. Standing at the entrance of the newly opened shop is a busty lady with horns, casually lowering her hand. Kano stares in disbelief. Who is this gorgeous lady? Is it Oba-chan? The lady on the 10th floor is Furu, the true owner of Obaba's shop. Despite her youthful and stunning appearance, she is actually a 1,000-year-old demon, with immense knowledge of the dungeon's inner workings. Her role resembles that of an advisor to those who reach her floor. However, there is one rule. Never call her old granny. Calling her granny or anything close might be the fastest way to die. And if that happens, even the Reaper might hesitate to collect your soul. When they step inside the shop, both siblings are left speechless. The interior is filled with shimmering magical artifacts, rare weapons, enchanted fabrics, and glowing crystals arranged with almost theatrical elegance. Kano immediately spots a chunk of mithril and gasps in awe. Sada raises an eyebrow, impressed. You know your stuff for someone your age. He corrects her gently. It's actually a mithril alloy, worth around 1 million if sold through the guild. Kano's eyes widen. When she asks how they're supposed to pay for anything here, Sada explains that Obaba's shop operates using dungeon currency or magic stones. Then he reminds her of all the loot they gathered, especially from the orcs and from Wokamat. They might be poorer than they look, but after that boss fight, they're sitting on a small fortune. Their total loot amounts to at least 138 copper coins. Without hesitation, Sada uses 3 of them to purchase a healing service from Furu Furu. Little by little, the two siblings are starting to get the hang of this fantasy world, collecting magic stones, identifying treasure inside the citadel, and managing dungeon currency like actual adventurers. Still, they have a long way to go. Furu Furu suddenly steps closer and grabs Sada's face firmly. Before he can protest, she locks eyes with him and activates a strange magical stare. A warm surge flows through his body. In seconds, he's restored to perfect condition. However, she continues squishing his cheeks while maintaining eye contact. Sada can only hope she keeps it professional, especially with Kano standing right there. Furu Furu casually remarks that he pushed himself far beyond his physical limits earlier. Out of mild amusement, or perhaps generosity, she even repairs the strain in his eyes free of charge. Then her tone shifts. They encountered an irregular, something like that should not have been lurking around the 7th floor. Sada stiffens. The only reason he even went there was because he got greedy for the armored knight job. Under normal circumstances, he would have avoided that floor entirely. While Kano browses the shop, Sada decides they might as well change their jobs while they're here. Furu Furu allows them to use a job change crystal displayed inside the store. They place their hands on the crystal. A faint glow envelops them. Sata's job changes to thief. Kano's job also becomes thief. Afterward, Sata mentions that he plans to become a regular customer. He hopes to see her kind side again. Furo Furo smirks faintly, then admits that it has been rather lonely lately. She hasn't had many customers. In fact, she recalls that a human visited not too long ago. That revelation catches Sata completely off guard. According to the guild's library, there is no record, no DLC, no hidden route mentioning this place. If another human reached this shop, then someone like him is already roaming this dungeon, and that changes everything. Furu racks her brain, but the 1,000-year-old beauty can't even remember what that human looked like. All she recalls is that he didn't buy a single thing from her shop. That alone bothers Sata. He's almost certain the visitor was a player. For one thing, it reminds him of those 3 students who simply never stumbled upon this place. And more importantly, anyone who reaches this floor would have collected magic stones along the way. It's practically impossible to survive the dungeon without fighting monsters. So how could someone make it this far and not buy anything? Magic stones are the only currency here. No adventurer would pass up the chance to trade them for rare gear or healing services. The fact that the mysterious human walked away empty-handed makes the whole thing even more suspicious. Piece by piece, the clues stack up in Sata's mind. A player exists in the school. He's already seen proof. When Yuma was completely overwhelmed during Karya's duel, that wasn't normal. Still, Salt has no idea who the suspect could be. He doesn't exactly have friends or connections to narrow it down. Later, the siblings head home. Exhaustion finally catches up to him, and Sota ends up sleeping until noon the next day. When he wakes, he feels guilty that Kano had to miss school because of the dungeon incident. She quietly heads to her room to rest. That's when he notices something unexpected. Karu is sitting in the living room, chatting awkwardly with his mother while waiting for him to return. When he asks why she's there, she nervously explains that she got worried after he didn't show up to school. She even carefully suggests that maybe he lost to a slime again. That comment stings. Sada hates the idea that Kaoru still sees him as the sore loser who can't even handle basic dungeon mobs. But when she looks at him closely, seeing that he isn't bruised, unconscious, or visibly battered from some life or death battle, she seems visibly relieved. He firmly assures her that nothing like that happened. As he turns to head to his room and rest, Kaoru hesitates, then softly admits the real reason she came. She wanted to apologize for the other day and to thank him for reaching out to her. Her words catch him completely off guard. For a brief moment, something unfamiliar stirs in his chest, a nervous warmth that makes his heart pound. He starts sweating like crazy, unsure how to handle it. As he watches Kaoru walk home, he becomes certain of one thing. She isn't the same person as in the game. And that realization unsettles him more than he expected. On top of that, he has another problem looming over him. He still hasn't become a healer. If things spiral out of control again, that weakness could cost someone their life. He needs to be careful. Back at home, Sata finally relaxes. It's the one place in this strange world where he can let his guard down, where he can simply exist with Kano without constantly calculating survival odds. Still, for someone hailed as a savior, he's carrying a ridiculous amount of trouble on his shoulders. At least, he caught a lucky break with Buddha's family. They took him in and treated him with kindness when he was at his lowest. Buddha helped pull him out of despair, along with her father, Daisuke, who runs the general store, and her gentle mother. Sayuki, who works at the guild, they gave him a second chance at life, and yet he's hiding something enormous from them. Not just the truth about the dungeon, but the truth about himself, about taking over Sada's body. And there's one more secret weighing heavily on him. He dragged Kano into the dungeon. Part of him wants to tell his parents that Kano has already reached level 19. He knows his father enjoys dungeon diving during the holidays. How would Daisuke react to that news? Later that evening, Sata joins them at the dinner table. But his father is already waiting. In his hand is a familiar pair of boots, Kano's dungeon boots. So she told him. Daisuke wastes no time asking about this secret dungeon diving. Sata tries to defend himself, launching into a lecture about how outsiders are treated like garbage in adventurer society. He insists he's just trying to carve out a safer path for Kano from the very beginning. So, she won't be looked down on or left behind. But Daisuke isn't arguing about pride or reputation. His concern is simpler and heavier. Kano is underage. What she did was illegal. Then Daisuke asks the real question. Does it have to be adventurer school? Is it too late to quit? He calmly explains that he's never changed jobs himself. Dungeon diving doesn't require enrollment. There are other ways. Sata falls silent, because he understands something his father doesn't. If he steps away from adventurer school, he steps away from the center of the story. And if he isn't at the center, he can't control what happens next. Sata tries to explain that it's a matter of physique, that training early builds the body for survival later. But his father cuts him off. There's no reason to drag Kano into this. Sada argues about insurance, long-term benefits, preparation for the future, but Daisuke shakes his head. To him, it all sounds ridiculous compared to one simple truth. They can't stand seeing their children come home hurt. His mother gently adds that they aren't forcing him to quit the adventurer school he worked so hard to enter. They just want a reason. something solid enough to justify the risk. Now Sada finds himself cornered. His parents aren't angry, they're scared, and they're asking him why this matters so much. Then, without thinking, Karu's face flashes in his mind. He mutters that there's someone at school he wants to protect. The room goes quiet. Unfortunately, the damaged boots sitting on the table, Kano's boots, have already exposed them. There's no hiding the truth now. Daisuke's expression tightens with worry. He feels awful for scolding them, but he's just a father terrified of losing his children. He admits he doesn't want to see them limp through the front door ever again, so he lays down a condition. If Kano insists on dungeon diving, then a parent must supervise her. That makes things worse. Their father's level is low, far below what the deeper floors demand. Daisuke sighs and admits he may not be some overpowered super dad, but he has experience. He's been diving longer than they've been alive. And more than anything, he doesn't want to stand helplessly by if something happens to them. He refuses to be the kind of father who watches his kids get hurt because he wasn't there. Their mother softly tells Sota that he doesn't have to decide tonight. He can forget this lecture for now and focus on what he wants. Hearing their perspective, Sota makes a quiet decision. He'll leave Kano in their hands for the time being. Later, alone in his room, guilt crashes down on him. He realizes he's been taking advantage of their trust all along, hiding the truth, using their kindness as cover. If only they had given him a lecture like this back when he first started gaining weight, maybe things would have turned out differently. Trying to clear his mind, he remembers the higher class appraisal wand he bought from Obaba's shop. Unlike the basic appraisal skill, this one provides deeper analysis. He uses it on himself. The first recommendation that appears is simple: eat like a glutton. Now everything clicks. That overwhelming hunger he feels whenever he loses weight, it's tied directly to his gluttony skill. The skill demands consumption to stabilize his power output. When he burns through mass during battle, the ability forces him to replenish it. He decides not to overwrite the skill. In fact, he finally understands why his weight returned so quickly after the fight. It wasn't random, it was gluttony restoring his balance. With a sigh, Sada mutters to himself that this borrowing phase might last longer than he expected. Starting tomorrow, he'll need to keep an eye on Yuma's squad and quietly gather information about what's really going on behind the scenes. The next day at school, however, he finds himself in a tight spot. Murai announces the pairings for sword training. One by one, students quickly choose their partners. Minutes later, Murai scans the class and asks if anyone has been left out. Sodom already knows the answer. His chances of being picked are almost non-existent. No one wants to spar with someone who might have a massive hidden level gap. From their perspective, he's either dead weight or suspicious. Either way, he's potentially screwed. Pairing with Murai would be even worse. As the PE teacher in charge of the Adventurer program, Murai is leagues above the students in both skill and experience. Sparring him would be dangerous, not physically, but strategically. The school still believes Sada is level 3. If he goes all out, even slightly, there's a real chance his true strength will be exposed. Just as he's mentally preparing for the worst, someone suddenly runs up to him. Sada, have you paired up yet? It's Satsuki. Apparently, her usual partner is absent today, leaving her stranded. For a moment, Sata recalls her role in the original storyline. She wasn't a main character, just an NPC. And yet, here she is, going out of her way to talk to Buto of all people. That alone convinces him she isn't a player. No self-aware player would approach him this casually without suspicion. Which means this works perfectly for him as they look around for another unmatched student. Satsuki spots Kuga, whose partner also happens to be absent. Just like that, the pairing problem resolves itself. For the first time that morning, Sota feels a wave of relief. Satsuki might not be a heroine, but to him in that moment, she feels like an angel sent to save his youth.